As a dungeon master, you want to encourage your players to be creative, spontaneous, and to riff off of one another and build upon that which has gone before. But what happens when the yes and prompt gets taken too far? In this video, we're going to explore that prompt in Dungeons & Dragons and how it can negatively impact our games. Hello friends, my name is Timothy, though some people do call me Tim. This is Lila. Here on our channel, we help you improve your game of Dungeons & Dragons, because I am professional dungeon master and so have much knowledge to share. Yes, no, maybe not. Anyway, will you be useful? What is yes and? Yes and is an improvisational prompt that essentially does what it says it is. You agree with something that somebody has said before you, and then you build upon it by adding extra details or additional situations. It can be a load of fun, and it's a great way to sort of practice taking something that somebody has said and building and building and building until you get to some hilarious crescendo at the end. In Dungeons & Dragons, often that means taking the plan that somebody has come up with and building upon it to make it even better, particularly when it's applied to some of our quieter players when they speak up and others yes and in on the contribution that they have to add to the game. It can really be a great way to encourage creativity and to improve our games. Using the yes and ability as a DM means taking an idea that somebody has put forth and saying, okay, yeah, I can see how that could succeed. And there's maybe these extra details we can add onto it. We can take it a step further by doing this as well. It's building upon what's already there, and it is a great addition into most of our games. However, sometimes it can be taken a little too far. You see, there's a couple of downsides to yes and that can be just a little bit dangerous. First and foremost, I don't know about you, but my first idea is not always my best idea. And the first time that somebody proposes an idea in the group, that's not always the person's idea that you want to jump onto, latch on with your whole heart, and take to the nth degree, driving out there into the distance and running with it no matter how far it goes, and even if you happen to be running in the completely wrong direction. Likewise, the first guy to talk in any given group is not always the guy that has the best ideas. So when we take yes and to its extreme, we can jump in on the loudmouth's plan, even though he was just throwing it out there as a silly riff, trying to get a laugh and not really serious. Yes and can also lead us to sort of unrealistic situations or unintended consequences as we take something that might be a viable plan and we sort of build upon it, one up it, make it more and more and more until eventually we are left with a hot mess of consequences for everybody to deal with afterwards. My most negative experience with the yes and prompt came when I was running a game of Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, and my group was made up of individuals from all over the country, and they were playing together for the first time, and one of the players was just a little bit outspoken and didn't really think the same way that the other players thought. Another of those players firmly believed that it was a player's responsibility to yes and on absolutely anything that was said. Any plan that was put forward, he immediately took that plan and stepped it up to the next level. So when at first level this interestingly thinking character started mouthing off to a wizard that runs the local mortuary, the yes and character started breaking things in their shop. When this same character decided to try to sink the low lantern in order to flush Amric Vanthampur out onto the docks, the yes and player decided to start throwing rocks through the windows to gather attention and make sure that everybody was looking at them while they tried to sink the thing. Essentially, yes and led to trying to burn the place down instead of building anything up, because that player was so devoted to doing whatever it took to take the first plan that was uttered and drive it out the door and make it happen in the group. Even though there are others in the group voicing their dissent, nobody yes-anded on the, please, let's not do that, that's probably not a good idea, we should do this smart thing instead. Yes and, because it came on to the first person to go out the gate, ended up being the problem. When it comes to going out the gate, I grew up in a small town in Tasmania, Australia, and my pop owned a farm. I went out on the farm on a regular basis and tried to help him to usher sheep from one paddock over to another paddock. And something I noticed that I thought was really interesting was when all the sheep got up to the gateway, which was just an open space between the two, the gate already opened, they've got dogs snapping around at their heels, and those sheep did not want to cross that threshold. They did not want to go through. As soon as one of them went through, however, the press of them would slam into the back and follow on through, and that's how Yes and would kind of work for them. As soon as one went through, everybody went through. And the danger in Yes and in Dungeons & Dragons is us latching onto the wrong idea and trying to push it forward. So how do we deal with Yes and in our games without letting it go too far? First, we can learn to use Yes and in moderation. Yes and is a great tool, but so is no but. When that other player wasn't around and that first player was putting out crazy ideas, that player was able to be talked down by his buddies, and everybody together was able to come up with great plans that could move forward. Second, we can learn to communicate as DMs the boundaries with players regarding what is acceptable to push towards and what isn't, by helping them to understand that, actions are going to have natural consequences. When players are cognizant of those consequences, they make better choices. Third, we can learn how to handle those situations when Yes and has caused a situation by simply enacting logical and suitable consequences to the actions that have come to pass. We're not looking to get anybody and out to get you, but by having logical pushback on anybody's choices and actions, we encourage our players to limit those sorts of interactions and to keep things within a bound that fits within the themes and context of our game. So while Yes and does have some potential danger in our games of leading us to burning down the boat, as it were, we can improve our games by helping those quieter voices and maybe restricting our Yes and from being applied to the first idea that's thrown out, or the loudest voice in the room, or that guy who just really likes to do crazy things. Let's try and keep it in some kind of moderation so that our games can progress without having these crazy consequences and without having things go wildly off track and get so crazy that nobody is having fun at the table anymore. As always, we have to remember that there are different opinions and that it is a balancing act between realism and fantasy, between helping our other people's voices to be heard and choosing a path that everybody can enjoy along the road. If you've had a great experience with Yes and where it either enhanced or detracted from your experience, I would love to hear about it. Please leave a message in the comments. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you'd like to hear more of this kind of thing, then please feel free to subscribe and check out some more videos. Thanks so much. Have a great day.